Minister, would you be ready to make a decision on Rogers and Shaw today? I know it's been extended to March 31st, but
as I said, in due course. In due course, I'm fighting for Canadians.
Do we have an idea about where you lean here? Because obviously we have different views from the Competition Bureau to the tribunal.
That's why I said in due course. You know, we're looking to make sure that we can protect the interests of Canadians. That's what I said from day one. And I'm not bound by any artificial deadline. I'm the regulator.
But to be exact,
it's got to come whenever it's got to come.
Do you think that merger will hurt competitiveness for Canadians?
We're fighting for competition. That's what we've done from day one. And we know that the best way to have that is to have a fourth national player. So we'll keep on fighting. That's what, you know me by now.
Right, but
you know me by now.
Right?
In due course. There's no artificial deadline for the regulator.
Other than March 31st, could you push it again?
That's not. I'm the regulator. I don't have any deadline.
Monsieur Champagne,
oui, madame.
Vous avez peur avec
Peur?
des révélations de l'ingérence chinoise.
Mais allez-y.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez des révélations qu'on a apprises dans le Globe and Mail sur le fait que la Chine cible des candidats pour...
C'est préoccupant. J'ai vu les nouvelles, mais c'est pour ça que je pense que vous avez vu, même en matière de recherche, on a commencé... On en avait déjà resserré les règles, puis on le fait davantage. Puis j'ai dit, je pense que quand on voit ces choses-là, il faut avoir les yeux grands ouverts, il ne faut pas être naïf, il faut regarder ce qui se passe. C'est pour ça que récemment, vous avez vu, on a même resserré les règles au niveau de la sécurité de la recherche, dans ce qu'on appelle la recherche qui est dans des domaines sensibles, dans des domaines clés de technologie. Alors, on va continuer de prendre les mesures appropriées parce que protéger la sécurité nationale, c'est la priorité numéro un.
What type of study should be done about these allegations of election interference in 2021 by China?
It's concerning, obviously, and that's why you saw us recently taking even stronger measure. You saw in research security. The moment we saw that, we said we all need to do more. We have to be eyes wide open and make sure we protect our national security, which, you know, national security is linked to economic prosperity. So when I see these things, we need to make sure that we take all the appropriate measures to protect Canadians.
Concerning is that China seemed to want your government to win in a minority.
Listen, I saw the reports, but like I said, what I'm concerned about is the allegations that we saw there, and that's why you've seen me time and time again taking measures every time we have encounter issues to take stronger and stronger measures. We did that in research, and I think Canadians know that they can trust us. You saw me blocking transactions. We're going to do whatever is needed to protect Canadians.
Okay,
merci tout le monde.
Merci.
So, Mr. Housefather, quick one for you. Do you think, according to Globe and Mail and everything, do you think China is affecting how our elections are run, particularly in certain ridings?
I have absolutely no knowledge of that. I don't have access to that information, but I'd certainly be concerned about China's activities in Canada at a broader level, and I think China is certainly a threat to this country in many ways in terms of how they're acting, in terms of their aggressive actions in South China Sea and abroad, and the balloon was just one example, so we have to be very wary, but I don't have any specific knowledge about it.
And given your riding in Montreal, it's not a factor for you, but for others?
In my riding, I have a very, very small Chinese community. Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Barrett, is China affecting the fortunes of your party in the elections?
Well, we've seen reports in news media that there's been, CSIS has evidence that there's been interference, and obviously that's unacceptable, and we've put questions to the government about what they knew and the effectiveness of the processes that they've had in place, and we're going to keep looking at that.
Are you missing Alice Wong, Bob Soroya, and Kenny Chu?
Pardon me?
Are you missing Alice Wong, Bob Soroya, and Kenny Chu?
Absolutely.
Globe Mail story about China interference in the election costing you guys a couple seats. What do you think? Does that surprise you? That sort of the Chinese, according to the Globe Mail, trying to give the Liberals a minority government in the last election. Does that concern you?
I haven't read this article, but there have been plenty of reports since the election, so it's not surprising.
The Globe and Mail has reported today that intelligence agencies have learned that China was trying to ensure a Liberal minority government in the last election. Obviously Vancouver would have been a factor, given the Conservatives talking about Kenny Chu and Alice Wong going down to Richmond. You're east side of Vancouver. What do you think?
I saw the article, and before I sort of get into comments, what I really want to do is to look more deeply into the issue. But I mean, generally speaking, obviously, is hugely concerning. And if that information is validated and backed up with documentations, is a major cause for concern. The question becomes, is what is the government doing about this? There is a real question around foreign interference from all the different countries who are trying to impact our democratic system and really undermine our democratic system. So it's a major cause for concern and action needs to be taken.
Are they trying to influence if your re-election chances at times? Have you felt that? You've been re-elected a couple times, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Well, certainly, I think across the communities where this foreign interference activities may be taking place, I don't think it's restricted to certain areas, and I think across the board, is impacting us in our community. So in Vancouver East, we did have a situation that did make me wonder what was the motivation behind it, where my Liberal opponent was particularly elevated where events were held for them by people who are well known in the community, in the Chinese Canadian community, and so those kinds of activities do make you wonder what is the motivation behind that. Is it strictly just on the policy issues, or is there some other motivation? Is it at the point where you report it to any of the security services, or is it just sort of you look at it and say? Well, it's a question that we certainly did raise with Elections Canada to say who paid for the luncheon, for example, that was hosted to have the Liberal candidate to be introduced to all the community members, for example. That's certainly something that should be flagged and be paying attention to. And I have no doubt CSIS and other intelligence agencies who's watching these issues are paying attention to what's going on as well. So how do you fight it? How do you stop looking towards the next election, whether it's 6 months from now, God forbid, or 2 years, whenever we get to it? I mean, from my perspective, the bigger question is this, right? Now that the Canadian government is aware that there are these concerns out there, and so what are they going to do about it? What are they going to do to ensure that Canadians and our democratic system is protected and not being undermined? I know you said you hadn't really looked at the Globe article that much, but when you pick it up and you look at the face of it, you say, holy cow, or yeah, I know. Like, is it a surprise to you when you pick up an article like that? Well, this issue's been sort of ongoing for some time, right? And is popping up here and there. There's never really a substantiated documentation to back up the concerns. And then, but as time passes, more and more is coming out. And so what that tells me is that there's a lot more behind it. We need to get to the bottom of it, and the government, the Liberal government, needs to take the lead of it. They cannot try to shield this information just because it may be that it's the Liberals who will be benefiting potentially from these activities. The issue here, for me, fundamentally, irrespective of parties, it is about our democratic system, something that I think sometimes we take for granted. But for me, as an immigrant, coming from a country where that did not exist, is something that I absolutely cherish, and we have to do everything we can to protect it. Thank you for stopping. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Bonjour, hello. Je m'appelle Niki Ashton, je suis la députée de Churchill-Kiwinikoski, mais aussi la porte-parole sur les langues officielles pour le NPD. Et je suis ici aujourd'hui, notre comité vient de terminer, pour exprimer ma grande préoccupation auprès de la stratégie libérale envers la protection des droits des francophones, de la francophonie, de l'avenir du français dans notre pays. Ça fait quelques jours qu'on a entendu un ministre du gouvernement, ministre Miller, nous dire que c'est très possible qu'il va voter contre le projet de loi historique de son propre gouvernement, le projet de loi C-13, qui sert à protéger le français, qui sert à particulièrement mettre fin au recul du français dans notre pays, une réalité extrêmement préoccupante au Canada. Ça me choque qu'un ministre du gouvernement, un ministre de la Couronne, soit contre un projet de loi de son propre gouvernement. Je me demande, c'est quoi la vision des libéraux quand on parle des langues officielles? C'est où la vision des libéraux pour la protection des communautés francophones, de la francophonie à travers le pays? Parce que maintenant, on voit qu'ils n'ont pas de vision, qu'ils sont en train de jouer des jeux politiques cyniques, soit à l'île de Montréal, soit au sein de leur caucus, et ils ne sont pas en train d'écouter les communautés francophones, les familles, les personnes francophones, les francophiles à travers le pays qui sont en train de vivre ce recul et dire on a besoin de ce projet de loi maintenant. I'm also going to share a few words in English. We have, just a few days ago, a federal cabinet minister, a senior federal cabinet minister coming out and threatening to vote against his own government's historic bill on the protection of French language and Francophone communities, minority language communities in this country. I cannot believe that we are seeing a cabinet minister threaten to vote against his own government's bill. My question is, where is the Liberal vision when it comes to the protection of Francophone communities and the future of the French language in this country? Why are they choosing to play political games instead of working with us to, yes, improve this historic piece of legislation, but more importantly, ensure that this legislation sees the light of day so that communities across the country that are literally desperately calling for this bill have the tools they need to survive? This is about the future of Canada. This is about the future of the kind of country we want to live. And we have a minister, the Minister of Indigenous Services, who likes to talk about the future of our country and reconciliation and what Canada should look like. Well, my question to him is, how can we talk about a Canada without talking about the need to protect Francophone communities, the need to protect the French language in the face of its decline? And finally, my question is, where is the Prime Minister? Where is the PMO on this? How are they allowing a senior cabinet minister to threaten to vote against a bill that is theirs? And I very much respect the message from the president of the SANB, the Société Acadienne du Nouveau-Brunswick, Monsieur Doucette, who said if indeed a minister is prepared to vote against a government bill, the Prime Minister should be asking for his resignation. Where is the Prime Minister on this? Where are the Liberals? It is time to drop the political games and work with us in the NDP and all of us around the table to make sure that the Official Languages Act is the strongest possible act we can have to be able to protect communities across our country and move forward and create the kind of Canada that everybody deserves to have going forward. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Oui? Oui, absolument.
À plusieurs endroits, on voit une séparation d'un côté du bloc, les Parti conservateur, un côté des libéraux, puis vous amenez à être vraiment le vote décisif d'un côté ou l'autre de l'amendement. Par rapport à vos élections, on veut être capable de faire des compromis pour essayer de faire que le projet de loi passe. Le fait qu'il y ait autant de dissension dans le côté libéral, est-ce que ça va faire que vous allez changer votre vote sur certains amendements?
Pour nous, on regarde chaque amendement basé sur la direction, les conseils des communautés francophones à travers le pays. Moi, en tant que francophile et quelqu'un qui parle le français de l'Ouest canadien, je connais bien la désespération qui existe au sein de ces communautés. Ils voient que leur survie est en péril, on n'exagère pas, et ils nous partagent des messages clairs où il faut y aller. Dès le premier jour, le NPD est prêt à faire avancer ce projet de loi où on travaille avec tout le parti pour pouvoir le faire. Mais il faut dire que hors de ce comité, clairement, il y a un contexte beaucoup plus préoccupant. On est en train de vivre dans un contexte beaucoup plus préoccupant. Et en fait, un contexte que moi, j'ai jamais vu lors de mes 14 ans comme député, d'avoir un ministre du gouvernement, de son propre gouvernement, proposer que c'est possible qu'il va voter contre et mettre en péril le projet de loi, lui et d'autres députés libéraux, est incompréhensible. Soit on parle du besoin d'avancer comme pays où les francophones, et le Québec, l'Acadie, les francophones à travers le pays ont la protection auquel ils méritent, soit on ne le fait pas. Et ce qu'on voit des libéraux, c'est qu'ils sont beaucoup plus intéressés à jouer des jeux politiques dans leur propre comté, sur l'île de Montréal, au lieu de travailler avec tous les francophones à travers le Canada pour avancer pour la protection de leurs droits et la protection de nos deux langues officielles.
Mais tu sais, on sent qu'il y a beaucoup de dissensions, il y a des amendements sur amendements. Ça fait longtemps qu'on attend ce projet de loi-là. Est-ce que le fait qu'on va essayer d'avoir le projet de loi qui est le plus fort, qui finit par être le plus consensuel, fait qu'on pourrait avoir juste aucun projet de loi? Est-ce que vous avez peur qu'on n'ait pas de projet de loi à la fin de cet exercice-là parce qu'on n'est pas capable de s'entendre?
Moi, je pense on va avoir un projet de loi, mais ce qu'on voit ici, c'est les libéraux sont prêts à le mettre en péril quand ça reviendra pour un vote dans la Chambre des communes. Alors, on va faire de notre mieux au comité. On le fait pour avancer ce projet de loi. On a proposé plusieurs sous-amendements, plusieurs amendements. On travaille avec les autres partis pour pouvoir avancer. Mais clairement, la discussion est ailleurs. Et ma question aujourd'hui, c'est comment est-ce que c'est possible qu'on a un ministre de la Couronne qui sort en opposition à son propre projet de loi de son gouvernement et finalement, c'est où est le premier ministre? C'est sérieux ce qu'on est en train d'entendre. Où est le Premier ministre pour défendre le projet de loi, la vision de son projet de loi et pouvoir dire non, qu'on n'accepte pas que des ministres osent penser à voter contre. Alors, moi, je considère qu'on est dans une situation très préoccupante et vraiment, on le dit sans exagération, on le voit des déclarations des communautés, ils ont peur, ils nous demandent de travailler ensemble et de mettre fin à ces menaces qu'on va voir des ministres de la Couronne mettre ce projet de loi en péril. On ne peut pas l'accepter. Nous, en NPD, on fait tout ce qu'on peut pour avancer le projet de loi et on espère que les libéraux vont laisser les jeux politiques, laisser l'égoïsme qu'on voit envers leur propre comté à Montréal et travailler pour protéger le français et la francophonie à travers le Canada.
Est-ce qu'on va faire un vote de confiance?
Comment?
Est-ce qu'on devrait en faire un vote de confiance? Est-ce qu'on devrait forcer le vaillant du côté des libéraux?
Mais moi, je dirais, mais c'est pas question de vote de confiance, c'est question de discipline chez le caucus libéral. Comment est-ce qu'on peut avoir un projet de loi du gouvernement et avoir un ministre de la Couronne qui ose voter contre et le dit publiquement. Alors moi je demande, mais je dirais, la responsabilité, c'est chez les libéraux de s'organiser, de montrer de la discipline, de travailler au sein du comité pour avancer la loi, de respecter le travail du comité qui se fait à travers la direction des communautés francophones et de laisser ces jeux politiques. Alors c'est ça.
Maybe I missed it. When did Minister Miller say he was going to vote against it? I was at the scrum where he said he had concerns. There's a lot of amendments to look over. You know that he wants the minority languages, either francophones outside Quebec or anglophones inside Quebec, to have their rights protected. I'm really trying to find this quote where he said he's going to vote against.
No, he threatened to vote against it. Yeah. Right, he mused about voting against it, yeah.
Right, because he has concerns. Is that part of legislation? For a minister to voice concerns on legislation that's going through?
What? I think, you know, and basically, well, you know, just to back it up, this is a historic piece of legislation that the Liberals have been promising to bring into you know, to implement for years now. They delayed bringing it forward. Madame Joly brought it forward on the eve of an election being called, a very cynical move. They brought it back again past their 100-day commitment. But what's interesting here is for months now we've been hearing their own cabinet minister tell us that this bill is perfect the way it is. It is a true representation of where the Liberals want to go. We said, of course, it needs to be improved. And we're doing that work in committee. And in an unprecedented move that I've never seen before in 14 years since I've been elected, we have a cabinet minister, a senior cabinet minister, who spends a lot of time talking about the future of Canada, musing that he may vote against a historic piece of legislation that seeks to protect French in the country. What I think that's what he wants it to sound like, but if you see the kind...
Did he say it or not?
Well, I think you have to see the context of what he's saying. A number of his colleagues in Montreal are trying to kill the bill, right? And to have us...
But they have said, one has said specifically she would vote against. Anthony Housefather as well as saying that he's concerned, specifically with the language of Quebec's Bill 96 being included. So what do you think about that language being included in the bill? Do you have similar concerns? Because it seems like that's what Mr. Housefather and Mr. Miller are voicing is concerns. You have one Liberal MP saying specifically she would vote against it. But you're right now saying that Mr. Miller should resign because he's voicing concerns.
No, I'm not saying he should resign. I know. I did not say. I quoted somebody, the president of the Acadian Société Acadienne du Nouveau-Brunswick, who said if he is to vote against, the Prime Minister should have him step down as minister. This is
It's not through committee. The amendments are still being worked on, right? Like he's saying that there's still work to do with the bill.
I think we've been all around politics long enough to know that what he is signaling is the possible death of his government's own historic legislation that would without a doubt take on the decline of French in Canada. And I just want to say, for the first time in our history, the latest census indicated that French is unequivocally on the decline, including in every region of Quebec. This isn't theory. This is the reality. So if we're going to be...
The language from Bill 96 in Quebec should be included in Bill C-13. Do you think that would help French minority communities outside of Quebec?
I think what is clear is that we should respect the work of committee, and we need to recognize that if we're going to talk about protecting French, that also involves working with the government of Quebec, whoever is in government. But I think what we're seeing here is some very cynical political games from the Liberals playing to their political base in certain ridings in Montreal, seeking to divide communities against each other. I think, the committee is a place where people can express the concern.
Communities in Montreal are very concerned about Bill 96.
And those concerns are valid. My question is, where were they to be reflected in this bill? How is it that their own government put forward a bill that ostensibly doesn't reflect those values? And all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, we hear that these concerns are the most important concerns ever, and it's up to the opposition to fix it. Where are the Liberals?
Do you have a problem with their concerns? What I'm trying to say is, do you have a problem with their concerns?
No, what I have a problem with, and I will be clear because this is not about what I do have a problem with is a senior cabinet minister musing that he will vote against his own government's bill that will absolutely have the power to take on the decline of French and the protection of Francophone communities in this country. This is very serious. I do not see the Prime Minister taking this seriously. And to be quite honest, I doubt that this is only coming from Minister Miller. My question is, where is the PMO? Where is the Prime Minister to say that this historic legislation is necessary to the future of our country? Not just to a few communities, but truly to the future of our country. And that's why I came here today to express that serious preoccupation, one that obviously Francophone communities are saying loud and clear. And the ball is in the Liberals' court. We expect them to show leadership and discipline and serious defense of French, defense of Francophone rights, minority language rights, but the survival of French and Francophone communities in Canada. Thank you. Merci.